Hi everyone, welcome back to the Harbinger China VC podcast. Today we have joining us Dr. Fan Ling, who is the founder and CEO of Tezign, a VC-backed tech startup, which is a platform-based design and creative talent solution. Dr. Fan, or as we call him, Fan 老师, is also a World Economic Forum Global Young Leader and part of the Aspen Institute China Fellowship Program. Fan 老师 holds degrees from Harvard and Princeton, and prior he taught for 7 years at the University of California, Berkeley, and China Central Academy of Fine Arts. Today with Fan 老师, we learn about his journey from China to the US and back, about how Tezign evolved from being the Uber for designers and creatives to creating a holistic platform for enterprise clients, and eventually to a creative-led, but all-around talent cloud and services platform for the future. Fan 老师, thanks so much for joining us. Before we get to learning about Tezign, your company, could you please tell us a little bit more about your personal story and what brought you from China to the US and to starting a company?
Sure. It's glad to be here in this podcast. Well, thank you for having me. Before I became a startup founder, I actually taught at university for 7 years. First 4 years in Beijing in an art school, which is called Central Academy of Fine Arts, and then followed by 3 years at UC Berkeley teaching design and human-computer interaction. My research was actually about how online platforms might help high-skilled professionals, designers, creatives, programmers, consultants, people like that. So how this sort of internet movement and the data platform might be helpful for emancipate knowledge workers. So that was my research. And then very naturally, at the end of 2014, a group of VCs from China very much eager for interesting people and interesting projects and try to bring them back to China. And then at that time I met some of my angel investors. And also internally I do have a motivation to become an internet entrepreneur. I had my first company between 2007 and 2011 and sold my company in 2011. So this is actually my second entrepreneur experience. And then at the beginning of 2015, after I got my angel investment, I came back to China and started this company.
Okay, so yeah, thanks for that background. And tell us a little bit more about that process. You mentioned there was people who wanted you to come back and create something very cool. So there was an interest from the investment side before you even started something, it seems. So what was that process like for you?
When I was still taught at UC Berkeley, I realized that there was a very strong sort of tendency in the Silicon Valley to combine design and technology. As we all know, that Airbnb, Pinterest, WeWork, and a lot of other companies that actually have very strong design sort of culture inside of it. Even some of them are founded by designers. Mm-hmm. So, and then we, when I sort of look at that, I started this community called Tezign, Tech Plus Design, and to basically help to bridge design and technology in a Chinese language context. And we grew to a quite large community based on WeChat. And then so some of the angel investors that actually found this and also see maybe there could be something happen in China as well. Mm-hmm. So we got actually pitched by the investors. And they helped me to understand better how this sort of generation of Chinese investors and startup founders want and what the sort of environment in China was at that time. So mm-hmm. that attracted me a lot. Mm-hmm. And so when I started to talk with them, I told them that I don't just want to do a community. I actually want to extend to the core of business, which is to bridge design and technology companies.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Got it. So that first step was creating that WeChat account and generating content, which created a community around it. That was something you were doing on the side. But then once you started to create an actual business around that, what was the first step? Was that the platform that we see today, where you have a community of designers and Fortune 500 companies on our other end being the clients, or was it something else?
Well, at the beginning, definitely was not that clear what the business would be. But fortunate enough, we have basically two resources. One is that at that time, everybody is sort of talking about sharing economy. So we thought that car sharing would happen, and designer or creative sharing probably could happen as well. So we thought maybe we should do a Uber for designers and creatives, that the human talents or creative talents can also be on demand. And then I also met, I have one of my co-founder was one of my first student when I taught in Beijing. So we worked together for 7, 8 years already. And then the other co-founder I met is an expert in on-demand labors. So he used to work for Work Market in New York. Work Market right now is one of the largest freelancer management system. And so we immediately sort of start to collaborate. Designer and creative seem to be the best group of people that can be on demand. They want freedom. They want their own recognition. They want their own community. They want to work for their own. And in China, we realized there are about 17 million designers and creatives currently in China, and 3 million currently studying design in universities. So we realized it's just a big market. And this market probably would be the first group of profession that go online to be on demand. And there gradually, when we start this, we realized that our advantage compared with a lot of other sort of first generation platform for labor, so-called gig economy, was that we are easier, because of this community, we are easier to get high quality professionals. And I always believe in technology, so we datafy those professionals, talents, and then to match them to companies. So the datafication of the talents and the matching is actually the core technology that we have. And then we realized that the clients that most care about the quality is actually larger clients. So gradually we start to move from the Uber of designers and creative to a more sort of on-demand creative talent platform for large enterprise.
Okay, that makes sense. And we'll get to Tezign in a bit more detail. But before we get there, just taking a step back, as I'm thinking about this, it seems that the design creative work, the so-called part of the gig economy, is just one category. There's a lot more other types of services that can be rendered, and there's also other large freelance platforms. So I'd just like to understand from your perspective, how were you able to get this to work with such focus on one area?
Well, this is a question we always got asked. In China, even a small sort of section of profession has already been large enough to be a recognizable market. Design is obvious one. And then while on the other hand, when I'm raising Series A and eventually led by Sequoia Capital, the sort of reason I convinced the partners at Sequoia is that the consumer upgradation is an increasing market. And when you are thinking of this increasing market, you have to recognize the value of design and creative. So the supply side basically needs to be upgraded. The service needs to be redesigned. The product needs to be redesigned. And the advertisement, the information, all needs to be redesigned. And therefore, it's not going to be digested or be solved by one single agency or company. It will be by a large number of individuals that creates this kind of diversity that react to the needs. Yeah. So that's sort of a way that how we think about this market, think about design as a starting point.
Right.
Why, if you look at, you sort of zoom out a little bit from this pure design industry, if you zoom out a little bit, in the past 10 years, it's really about consumer side, sort of innovation. And the consumer data is currently all on cloud. But if you look at the enterprise, I always believe the next 10 years would be the area, well, at least in China, would be a focus on enterprise. There are very few assets from enterprise that's currently on cloud. The workflow is not on cloud. That's why the SaaS has potential. And one of the most important assets for the enterprise, which is the talent, is not yet on cloud. So I do believe that in the future, the talent on cloud is also a way to go. And then if you look at which group of talents that will be on cloud first, it will be the ones that have the seasonal changes, that react to immediate consumer needs, which is the marketing department, which is the ones that produce sort of these informations that immediately react to the customer needs. And the designers, creatives seem to be the right entrance point, but not necessarily limited to that. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. And we'll spend some more time on the 2B model and the B2B platforms in China. It's a very interesting area and quite different from that in the US. But let's get to Tezign a little bit further. So now we understand overall what Tezign is. It is, as you mentioned, is a platform for designers, creatives on one hand, and for corporate clients on the other, and potentially C users as well. But what are some of the key components as you would describe yourselves? There's a community, right? There's a content piece. I also know that you guys are leveraging artificial intelligence to improve the overall experience. Can you talk us through that?
Yeah, sure. So on one hand, it's really those individual designers or small design studios. We call them hyper-specialized individuals, that they have their very special skill and they have very special sort of a style that they have. While on the other hand, it's the large enterprises. And for the large enterprises, there are multiple layers that we need to work with. At the sort of project level, we work with the marketing departments or product departments that use designers and creatives. And then we also need to deal with the procurement. And then the toppest level is the CIO or CEO. So different layers that wants different things. So the marketing level, they want to solve the problem. So we help them to solve the problem on time, on scale, on quality, and less expensive, more efficient. But on the procurement level, it's really about the challenge that they want to create this kind of creative vendor list, vendor pool that's constantly mobile. So imagine Tezign as a pool of water. They want us also to build a system that they can sort of own that water, both as a private sort of talent cloud and public talent cloud. So they want the system to be part of the company. At the CEO or CIO level, let me give you one example. When I talked to the CEO of Starbucks, she would say, Belinda, she would say that she needs to be in charge of 50% of the growth globally. China market needs to deliver 50% of the global growth. But why, on the other hand, she should not increase any headcount. So she needs a holistic solution that can work, that to increase revenue on one hand and not increase the expenses on the other. So we really are the sort of solution in that sense for them. And then, so when you're looking at more and more fragmented needs from the large enterprises, you will see that a CEO or a centralized management cannot control or cannot even touch each smaller projects. So it really needs a centralized, let's say, a dashboard or centralized sort of a management database. And that database, it needs to be embedded into sort of the corporate intelligence, the enterprise intelligence. So what we help them is that when we datafy the talents on the platform, we datafy the project, datafy the client as well, and datafy the industry. So we would know what's their relations, right? So what industry would do a certain kind of creative project, and to use certain kind of creative talents, would do this kind of mapping. So the AI or the machine learning component in a product will help the CEO, although she or he cannot control every project, but he knows sort of the greater pictures. So we will be using that to help them to make better decisions. Sometimes, even for creative projects, they need to be a conformist. They need to conform. They need to be conformed to the general sort of tendency. While on the other hand, they need to be maverick, that they know their decision is not following the data result, but being brave. Okay. So the sort of machine learning part would be helpful for this kind of decision making.
Okay, if I'm understanding this correctly, there's two major strands that comes out of this. On one hand, there's a community of these creatives and designers that are sometimes leveraged to supplement a company's existing staff, but in general, it's kind of like an on-demand service of talent. And secondly, it seems that you guys also just create a platform, a tool product suite that a large company can use. So, from their perspective, what do they see? How does this overall product and platform actually work for the client, for the corporate client?
I'll give you one example later, but in principle, the enterprise clients we're working for, they work, their thinking is actually very advanced, but the way of working still have a lot of barriers that to sort of revolutionize their own workflow. Although they're trying a lot of things that to change that, but it's not easy, as we all know. So basically, the baseline for us is that we will deliver the solution for the clients. We're not challenging their current way of working. So if they need consultant, we could provide consultant. If they need training, we could provide training. It really depends on the clients. But luckily, we see some of the changes. In our office later. The large enterprise will send some of the trainee to our office and to learn how we work, not just to learn how our product works, but also how a startup team works. So they're really interested in sort of using the product as well as embedding the sort of more startup or entrepreneurial mindset into their existing team. So that's the good thing that we see, although that's perhaps only 1% of our clients, but I do see that's the interest growing.
Right.
And one, maybe I can give you one example that why these larger enterprises, in principle, they're embracing new way of working. Because, like what I said, the consumer part has been changed enormously in the past decade. And the consumers are very easy to shift to a new product, a new platform. They're very knowledgeable and well-connected. So it's the brand, it's the 2C brand or the 2C companies that's trying to catch the consumers right now. And the consumer, we always say that right now we are still in an economy of scarcity, but the scarcity of attention. So we need to bring, to catch the consumer's attention through different ways. So the biggest sort of change for the 2C companies right now is this kind of a mindset of massive personalization. So before, you just deliver one product and everybody needs to buy it. But right now, you have so many options. So every product needs to have a personal story to engage a certain consumer. So when you think about that, you will see the limit is the supply side. You don't have enough supply of a diversity of product. You don't have enough supply for the diversity of information, service, etc., etc. So one very interesting project we did was actually for the Taobao Maker Festival. Taobao Maker Festival is a place you can find diversity. So Maker Festival is an offline sort of event that happen annually for Taobao, that Taobao shoppers or anyone can go to that festival and can enjoy all strange things. So this year's Taobao Festival, Maker Festival, they use data mining to select 108 very, very different shoppers. So the shoppers that sells calligraphy, the shoppers, the small business sells chemicals, different colors of chemicals, or cartoon figures, things like that. And then so we said, okay, that's interesting. And we could use the data mining also to select 108 different designers and creatives. And every designer and creative have a certain sort of character that can connect to one shopper. For instance, one shopper is selling those sort of panda figures. And then one of our designers that we pick was, in his own profile, he says he wants to be a white, circular shaped, lazy animal, which, that's the way, so sort of how he described a panda, and to live like a panda. So basically, this 108 designers and 108 shoppers will create very locally, very individual story, and then each story will influence a very small community that shares that kind of story. So in this sense, it's not one solution for 108,
Yeah.
but 108 solutions for 108.
Yeah.
So that could only happen with platform and platform, with ecosystem and ecosystem.
Right, right. Yeah, those are some really good examples, and I think we see this overall trend happening not just in this area, but for commerce as well.
Yeah.
When you think about back in the day, go to a supermarket, all the products are basically made for everyone. But now it's much more specialized. You got razors, Dollar Shave Club, and others in the U.S. being acquired by large CPG companies. You have Bonobos, you have Warby Parker, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of examples of that. I think for you guys right now, so as you guys build up this kind of design and creative community and have this really ideal experience, just think about the future. You get so currently the big e-commerce platforms are like Alibaba, JD. It's usually physical goods. But when it comes to the service side, we see another similar, very large company that incorporates not just, let's say, design or even development, but also consulting, other types of services, etc.
I do see the trend of that. Of course, there was a report by McKinsey Global Institute saying that in the next 7 or 8 years, that this kind of talent platform for high skill or knowledge workers will create 2.7 trillion US dollars GDP. So we do see, a lot of millennium when they go to work, they would prefer to work more freely, more independently, and the percentage for knowledge work also will increase dramatically in China. So I do see that in general as a trend. So there will be a platform. Well, there already has a platform of goods, and there will be a platform for knowledge workers or skills. But the problem is that the skills, is not a to C service. It's actually to B. And there, whether it will be one platform that has all the skills that service all the company, or there will be multiple vertical skilled platform that serves different fragments of companies. Some serve smaller ones, some serves larger ones. That's unknown.
Yeah.
So, but we do see, at least in the United States, it's also happening in China when we work with Alibaba and Ping An, which is the largest insurance company in China, that in their solutions, they want something called Talent Cloud. They also want the talent to be cloud-based so that they can hire based on project, based on time, based on skill, based on, and then assemble team online. They do. I do see also that is happening, but it's not happening everywhere. It's happening in some of the more experimental large companies.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned the importance of the cloud and the B2B model in China, which currently is emerging, but it's not quite as developed. Can you tell us, versus the US, for example, can you tell us a little bit more about why that's the case?
I think if you look at in general, actually before, the market is still very large. The market is still like a blue ocean. So the growth is more important than efficiency. So the companies will spend more time into growth, into marketing, into sales, things like that. Yeah. But gradually, when the market start to getting more and more occupied, and the companies start to look at how to increase efficiency, how to increase their competitiveness, and then that will be the time when the company will invest in their internal software, IT service, cloud service, etc., etc. So I think that's exactly the pivot point that we are currently facing, the structural changes, right? Yep. So but how China's sort of B2B market will be different from United States or from other places in the world, that's still unknown. That still need more successful to be business to emerge in order to find the right model. Yeah. We still haven't seen any large to be company yet.
Right. Yeah, and a lot of times for these things to be built out, there's a little bit of pushing in terms of the entrepreneur interest and consumer demand, but also the investor interest too.
Yeah.
So I think at least from a China VC perspective, they are very interested in this space now.
Yeah.
Because back in the day, there was a lot of mobile type opportunities that were very obvious to them. And these days, AR, VR, AI, sure, those are air cores. But B2B is just not very developed in China. We know it's it's going to be developed. It's just a matter of the timing and also types of returns you can get.
Yeah. So if you look at 10 years ago, the 2C model, the Chinese investors also look at we call it C2C, right? Copy to China. So that was 10 years ago, and then gradually with the mobile emerging, more and more Chinese investors has their own perspective in terms of investing to see companies, and some of them, I would say, in terms of business model and technology, probably more advanced than the ones in the United States. I guess to B is also maybe catching up like 10 years ago for the 2C investments. The investors mostly look for the copycat of American companies, to find the Chinese Salesforce, to find the Chinese Workday, things like that. So they're not developing a Chinese, a to-be investment philosophy with Chinese characteristic yet. That's why I think opportunity and challenge happens at the same time. I look at this market with a lot of passion and enthusiasm, but of course right now we just start.
Right. Okay, and back to Tezign. So, we were talking about this earlier as well, and you mentioned that there was an interest in shifting to more of a SaaS business model for Tezign.
Yeah.
So, could you talk us through how you're thinking about that?
It actually follows what we discussed about the enterprise market in China. The companies tend to be very reluctant to purchase something that just to increase their efficiency. So they would purchase a solution that can have immediately result. So for us, the first stage of our business is all transactional based. So we deliver the result and we got the money.
Yeah.
But gradually when we go deeper, if we work with one company, for instance Alibaba, 100 times already, then Alibaba start to discuss with us. Can you provide the whole infrastructure to us instead of charging us once every time?
Yeah.
So then it gives us a lot of inspiration that why not we just embed the system into their daily workflow, and then charge them by SaaS model. It actually is still equivalent to transaction, but discounted transaction. So that's the way how we think. But if we start with SaaS model, they won't accept. Yeah. But when we have got enough transactions, then they start to negotiate with us because SaaS model obviously is more efficient way.
Right.
Yeah.
Got it. And also, I was just thinking, I realized that you have a very global background, both China and the U.S. There's a following, there's a following for you and your company, not just here, but also abroad. So just wondering, as you guys build up this SaaS product, how much of your client base is in China, how much is in the US or other countries? Because they might be more willing to accept this model and kind of build around there.
Sure. Thank you for bringing that up. Our team are very international, and we are trying to be as international as possible. We always believe that this generation of entrepreneurs in China is not just Chinese company or Chinese entrepreneurs. They should think globally, help them to connect with the international talents as well. Although we are still a very small startup, we are actually forced to be global because some of our clients, a lot of our clients are actually global companies, Alibaba, Unilever, even the smaller ones like Truman or Deep Glint. They are all global companies and trying to be global very early on. So we're asked to be global by them. While on the other hand, some 80% of our talents are Chinese-speaking talents, but a lot of them actually currently stays overseas, and 20% are global talents. We help to connect a lot of global talents to a local company and vice versa. And interestingly enough, the more global some company are and the more local they want to get. For instance, Starbucks, when they start a new shop in, for instance, in Yunnan province, they actually want Yunnan designer to design their local souvenir. So, and Unilever, when they're entering Chinese market for a new product, they want a very specific group of designers that to design very local looking packaging that to engage better to the local consumers. I guess that's also went back to what we discussed earlier as the massive personalization. You just need a lot of sort of engagement with the consumers, and that engagement needs to have this sense of on one hand global, while on the other hand local.
Got it. Okay, and final, so one more question for you. How are you thinking about the long-term future? What are certain things that you're doing to set the foundations for future growth, whether it's technology, whether it's team building, whether it's other core capabilities that can help you guys differentiate?
My background, I has been in academia for a number of years, and I always enjoy being a professor, although I think that being an entrepreneur is more of my career path, and being a professor is my interest. But when I started getting more and more into business, I realized that business is really a result-driven thing, and I have to worry about, in next 3 months or 6 months, whether this company will survive, still have business. Right. But while on the other hand, as an entrepreneur, I also been mentored by a lot of successful entrepreneurs that we need to think for long term. So I think that working, collaborating with universities and the larger companies in research project would be very helpful to keep that long-term vision. So then we start this research lab called Design and Artificial Intelligence Lab with Tongji University, and with the collaboration also with Alibaba to rethink how data, how internet, and how algorithm, machine learning can help to rethink design as a profession, design as a service, design also as an object. So we did this lab for more sort of long-term vision. And if we do basically two kinds of things. One is that we do this design and artificial intelligence report annually. We finished first report half a year ago and published that report in a big event at Alibaba, and they actually got about 100,000 downloads in the past half a year, and they got a lot of media exposure as well. And on the other hand, we also use data both in the Tezign platform as well as from Alibaba, that to think how those data, consumer data or design data, can help designers to better use data to help them to design. So currently we're working on 2 projects, and we're working on another project together with Alibaba. Last year, we helped them to work on one banner project. Alibaba as an e-commerce platform, they have huge number of banners that needs to produce every year. And so we helped them together to build a tool called Luban, which is AI assisted banner generation software. Between the week in Double 11 last year, the Luban system has produced 170 million banners within a week. So imagine each banner probably worth, before, if designed by a designer, it probably worth 20 to 100 RMB per banner, and 170 million. That's a huge amount of revenue. Yeah. And with that amount of banner, you actually can not just push different product to different consumer. You actually can push different brand information to different consumers. I think that would increase enormously the consumer engagement rate, and that's what the KPI for Alibaba.
Yeah.
In a way that the collaboration with university and large company can expand our understanding in terms of designer, and data, and we will keep investing that. And I think and that would be very helpful for us to sustain competitiveness in the startup world.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Fan 老师. That makes a lot of sense, and I think falls into the broader trend of AI being applied on very specific use cases that makes either experiences better, things more efficient. AI is not all about singularity and robots, taking over the world. So, very great initiative that you're doing there. Well, Dr. Fan 老师, thanks so much for your time. I think found this session very, very insightful, and our audience certainly will find it very valuable. So, thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Well,
Okay.
Thank you.
Cheers.